Weird things happen. It's smooth as butter too, isn't it?
Sure is, friends, sure is. And I'm host Eric. As you heard from Nick there, it's smooth and butter today. Here on Talking with Spanish People, smooth as butter. Regardless, what I'm here to talk about is what TE and FI do when they are in either the fourth or first slot. So which personality types are we talking about? We're talking about ESTJ, who's got TE1, FI4. We're talking about ISFP, who's got FI1, TE4. We're talking about INFP, who's got FI1, TE4. And we're talking about I ENTJ, who's got TE1 and FI4. Okay, so ENTJ, ESTJ, INFP, ISFP, those are your FITE types. And how do they display their FI or TE when it's in the 1 or 4th slot? We're specifically focusing on the 4th slot here, but obviously you can't have one without the other. So let's start with ESTJ and ENTJ. As TE DOMs, they are about understanding the things that are happening in front of them in terms of the optimal means of executing that procession of events. TE is very aware of how events string together over time to accomplish outcomes. It's something that I struggled with a lot as a kid and continue to struggle with. The fact that if you do a little bit every day, then it adds up and you accomplish some shit. I didn't like prolonged projects like that. I never did, and I still don't, really. So ESTJ, ENTJ, though, they get that and they like that. Now, this is where they get their reputation for being interfering because they watch somebody else doing something, they see the inefficiency of it. They're tuned in all the time to seeing how processes in space execute out for either efficiency or inefficiency. Much TE is still actually rooted in space. I'm learning this as I go about this whole yard sale and moving and all this kind of stuff, packing stuff and tying stuff and thinking about the fact that you're going to run into that and kick it and hurt yourself and moving things that have nails in them away from pathways and all that kind of shit is TE stuff. And if you're a TE Dom, you are living in that world of thinking about how can I make this more optimal. Now, what this is going to be some sort of goal-driven outcome, and for ENTJs especially, that will begin to move more into the realm of big plans, like let's put together this enterprise rather than let's successfully move this over there without knocking shit over. So that represents the physical and metaphysical aspects of TE. ESTJ, at least in theory, is more likely to be a physical aspect of it. ENTJ more likely to be a metaphysical aspect of it because, of course, the intuitive is born in and of the lands of meaning over experience and vice versa for the sensor. However, it is my contention that the sensor may in fact be the one who prioritizes the metaphysical TE and the ENTJ may in fact be the opposite because I've seen the equivalent with the ENTP where I've seen Taylor and ENTP who prioritizes the physical aspect of extroverted intuition over the metaphysical aspect, even though extroverted intuition is by nature metaphysical action. So, as a consequence, when you're talking about TE DOMs, you're talking about people who are directive towards others in general to an extent that causes others to find them chafingly bossy in ways that are not very FE coded. This explains why these TE DOMs have FI in the 4th slot, which means they got FE in the 8th slot, which means they think of it as evil, basically a barrier, a matter to be dealt with and solved and gotten out of the way because all it does is interfere with efficiency. And to make matters worse, it makes people not appreciate the efficiency you do provide as much as they should if they really value what they ought to value, according to a TE DOM. Now let's look at it the opposite way. What if it's in the 4th slot? Well, then you got INFP and you got ISFP. And what I can tell you is it's still a TE driven world. TE sneaks into everything way more necessarily than FI does necessarily. So in a lot of ways, FI DOMs display as more TE than TE DOMs display as FI. Now, I've heard from a commenter recently that they're in an intimate relationship within behind closed doors and everything. The ESTJ is quite moist. I mean, I lived with my dad my whole life, and he was never very moist with my mom at home. You know, maybe super behind closed doors, but even when they were in private times and I was sort of nearby as a little kid, he just isn't very moist. So, I mean, I think if you are FI seeking, what you're seeking anyway is not so much the FI of I love you, but rather you're seeking somebody else to remind you and drive home the key things about your relationship, to make it real for you over and over again, and to say, here's our relationship. I love you more now because our relationship has lasted longer. We put more time into it and it's evolved and developed. The fact that FI means that relationships evolve and develop over time is something that I continually forget and don't understand and fail to get and all that kind of shit. That you just got to be patient and let shit sort of get to know people and stuff. I expect to close the distance instantly. Why? Because I'm FI polar. Well, an FI Dom is obviously going to understand by their nature the way that relationship develops over time. And so that is probably the FI they provide for the TE 4-slot users, ESTJ and ENTJ. Namely, they provide an ongoing milestone updates because they're judgers, they're results oriented anyway. Milestone updates regarding the development and progression of the relationship. INFPs are notorious for talking problems about their relationships. In other words, creating the meaning that comprises a problem that then needs to be solved by, well, ideally a TE user. My thinking is, though, that ENTJ should probably be with INFP and ESTJ with ISFP. I think that would work better than the duality model in this one. I think it may be reversed for results-oriented people. That with results-oriented people, intuitives need to be with intuitives, but with process-oriented people, then intuitives need to be with then intuitives need to be with sensors because they're on the metaphysical action slash physical epistemology or physical action metaphysical epistemology axes. They're inherently more meaning driven because they're in the knowledge action thing rather than in the adjudication thing, the let's judge this shit. If you're talking about judging functions in your 1-4, then you're going to need clear, distinct status points. I think that judgers, because they have an evaluatory function as their dominant nature, it forces them to render into time object approximations or word approximations or chunk approximations of where they are in terms of their judging metric. So with FITE, it's about subjective. How do they really feel about where they are in terms of their own personal goals, and how does this really link back to me? What's my cut in this thing? Is the FITE question. It's a fundamental question. It's I love you. I love you. I like you around. I feel a lot of FI towards Kimberly because I just want her around. It's like that's FI. I just love you. There's no reason. I'm not getting anything from you. I just I don't spend a lot of time in that because I'm fucking blind to it, but I still feel it for Kimberly. I do spend a little time in it. FITE users are going to spend a lot of time negotiating that exchange. How much am I going to value you, even though you're doing things that hurt me? Because remember, if you hurt an FI user, what happens is they start to they attribute that to you. That's your fault. It doesn't matter if it's logical or whatever. It doesn't matter at all. So you could be right, but if it still hurts their feelings, then that takes away from your pure goodness. if I point out that, hey, you've really let me down because we agreed to this and you really need to do this and you said you were going to and I thought I could count on you, then it's not them who's done something wrong, it's you who's done something wrong because you've hurt their feelings. And while you, the FE user, can get over it just fine, especially if you're TI preferring, provided that they say, oh yeah, well that's fair, and treat it as though it were a fair thing, you cannot then get over it as an FETI user because they don't treat it as a fair thing. They treat it as you hurt their feelings. It doesn't matter whether it was an attack or not. You still hurt my feelings and you shouldn't have done that. And now I feel worse about you. Now, the FETI user, of course, is going to go insane with this and go, but that's not fair. Anyway, TE fourth means what they're really seeking is a clear path forward and somebody who can cut away the unnecessary bullshit. They're not really looking for direction. They're looking for somebody to run interference for them and allow them to be efficient, not by knowing themselves what the most efficient way is, but by having the inefficiencies cleared away for them by somebody who's taking ownership of that. That's fundamentally what it means to seek your fourth function, is you want someone else to take ownership of it. Whom? Well, your dual, according to socionics, and I tend to agree, except I think maybe in the opposite for your judging types with the TI or the FE or the FI or the TE in the first or fourth slot. Today we just did FITE. Homie's back with a leaf blower, of course, so that means my time here is up. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to eat plenty of motherfucking cheese, y'all.